the reforms proposed for Hamilton County, these are simulacrum reforms. They're not real reforms. They're not really even changes. They're perhaps changes in the form, and they do suggest, though I do make that comment, and I would stand by it. They do draw on the concept of decentralization, where we have a shift in the locus of authority, as it were, from the superintendent's office and those desks of bureaucrats more toward a school-centric approach, and that is generally a good concept if there are councils or groups within a particular school who control more rather than less what happens there, especially if those groupings contain memberships that are of parents. This is David Tulis. We argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. We are arguing for a local economy and a free market. We don't have that here in large measure, and that is because all of us have yielded to the inducements of Hegel, who convinced the Germans to begin the public school enterprise and bring us to a very important and famous world wars, thanks to German militarism and the submission of individual Teutonic families to the state of Prussia, and then, of course, of the various republics that followed the centralization of that country and its disparate kingdoms into Greater Germany, right, and then finally into the Third Reich, led by cousin Adolf, who had a very low view of individual states or states' rights. He did not like those at all. And so this whole enterprise of German education we have adopted, and centralization has always been the system. It has been in progress since Horace Mann and the Boston School Committee, and now we are. And it is a system. It is a system in its twilight. And so what we're trying to do here is we defend the local economy, the free market, and suggest that you love your neighbor and buy local. We've been asking, how do we restore self-government? That is, of course, what we've lost. It is a theological statement, by the way, to say we've lost self-government under God. And we have become subject to others, governed by others, presumably our betters, right? But we are governed by elites and aristocrats, for sure, all of whom went to the most private and expensive schools in New England, where you learn how to think. No one learns how to think in public school. It is denied you the means to learn the secrets of government, self-government, and in the elite New England schools, government of others, control of others. Those are things that are not taught generally in any curriculum. But the elite families, the several hundred elite families and their children, they do learn those things, according to John Taylor Gatto. Now, the argument we make here about loving your neighbor and buying local is that we have to, in true Nooga-centric fashion, recover self-government and the desire for self-government. And that's why it's theological, because in theology, that's to say, in the study of God, right? Like biology is the study of bio, the life of bio. Theology is the study of the life of God, theos, God. And so in theology, we are exhorted in the scriptures to govern ourselves under God, right? That is what is constantly encouraged. And the children of Israel and the church, the heir of all those promises, is exhorted by Paul and by all the other writers, the historians, and even in the beginning of Moses, it was all the same argument. We are to govern ourselves under God, and that is to say, in terms of equity, in terms of just treatment, seeking righteousness, seeking justice. Justice is the main payload, if you will, the main blessing of the Christian rhetoric. The Christian argument is that you have to be holy before God personally, in your life, in your thoughts, and your doings, and then you have to care about God's justice and rightness, and His law in the public wheel, in the public realm, in the civic realm, in law, in government, in warfare, in university, in business, in commerce, in exploration, in technology. All of those are to serve God, and all of them have to be brought more and more so into compliance with His will, with compliance to lex talionis, the law of equals. That the real egalitarianism that's promised in the word, not the phony ERA feminist type of egalitarianism, or the communist Marxism, which promises also an egalitarianism as well, where every worker does exactly what he knows to do. He does not even have to be told. In Lenin and Stalin's analysis of Marxist life, your worker man, the new man, right, the new model man, knows exactly what to do. He does not even have to be told what part to put into the Russian car that's trundling down the assembly line. He knows exactly what to do because he's been trained in the school of the Soviet Union with the red star, the red pentacle there in a row of 5 in the stonework over the entrance of that shabby rundown school there outside of Moscow. This is David Tulis, and I argue that you should love your neighbor by local. It is an argument that has some faults. I admit to them. I'm seeing more and more that localism can be as faulty as nationalism, because it follows sort of the same argument. But near is better than far. Small is better than big. Simple than complex, I suggest. And in the local economy theory that we espouse here and that we try to analyze, and we're constantly testing, we would say also in the nostrums in 5-point type, in the footnotes, Helvetica type, of course, the neutral font. Personal is better than corporate, and physical is better than abstract. But of course, you talk about making love to your wife. Make sure that you don't adhere to that maxim at that point. Okay, you don't want to do that. You want to be very, 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 very physical and eschew, avoid, abstain from abstractions. You want to be very physical, but of course, if you want to shed personal liability, by all means, become a corporation. Right, become a corporation and act outside of your body. Act ethereally with the corporate veil over you and unpierceable, except perhaps for bad faith or fraud. And you can escape the consequences of your actions. These are all, of course, why these are my nostrums, because I think if more people understand these things, really, they are a kind of application of the gospel. They are, I would suggest, a kind of living out in the details the requirement for Christian sanctification. Right, sanctification is the duty every person has before God to be more and more holy, for His glory and for our benefit. Well, that is the argument, and we are at yournews.com and brought to you by yournews.com, the Chattanooga page, and also by Nooganomics.com. I wanted to mention now. You can call me. Yeah, you sure can. 800-8949. That's 800-8949. If you want to ask me a question, feel free. 800-8949. The Future Ready Institutes are going to be brought to our benefit here in Chattanooga. Every school will have its own little institute. East Ridge High School will have the Institute of Building and Design. Howard, the Institute for Healthcare and Innovation and Hospitality and Tourism, and Ottawa, the Institute of International Baccalaureate Studies. Of course, you can become a globalist then, and Sequoia, you've got industrial manufacturing, and also the Institute of Digital Arts Design and Production, where it is thought that we can have children in the system, and we can keep the system alive by making changes which suggest which kind of borrow from and recognize and react to the decentralizing force, which is the internet. And we're not allowing the school to dissolve. It is kind of a devolution toward the market, toward what diehard ideological fans of public school would say the void. Right? If you have a marketplace, you have a void. You have chaos. You have chaos. And my question is, in light of the paramilitary threat to every school child today, in light of the prospect of mass shootings, which are becoming quite popular among the disaffected, enemy-laden, disoriented people hopped up on narcotics from prescription doctors, right? These narcotics are often from doctors among our fabled gunmen in this country. They are folks who are taking psychotropic drugs, just like many people in school are kind of given to healthy addictions, to mind altering, mood altering, uh, will help you bear the consequences of your life altering problems. Uh, and so we are victims of gunmen, and we are facing the threat of gunmen in Chattanooga and Howland County. And so and so we have these two intersecting problems. One problem is a bureaucratic system which is top heavy, extraordinarily expensive, inefficient, and pretends that the internet doesn't ignore it, pretends that information and research reports, authors of any kind, are available almost for free. I'd say for free, and yet the system pretends that they're not. That information is very expensive and has to be doled out very carefully by state-certified people, and that is the only way that your child can learn what the world is all about, by having the lecture given by a state-certified professional, which of course is one of the great teachings of and one of the assumptions of schooling. On the other hand, we have the threat of mass extinction of large swaths of people in a given hallway or a given set of rooms at Tyner High School. The gunman coming through with his blazing .223 caliber semi-automatic carbine, and the schools are not going to be shut down. Now the question is, what is it in Jim Hammond's thinking that prevents him from shutting down Hamilton County schools? What thinking is there in his mind that prevents him from reaching the argument or the claim that he, as the most important man in the county, must shut down these schools because he cannot protect them? Well, he's not really charged with protecting schools. He's charged with protecting the court and bringing people to bar. That is his job as sheriff. And the idea that he is responsible for protecting every child in every public school is something that he assumes is his. It's not legally his, and no police officer or sheriff has any legal obligation to protect anybody. That is not their job. Is not to be a totalitarian operator to prevent gunmen from reaching your child in a mass gun-free setting. That's not his job. And there's a high court case, I think, in the late 80s, that makes that very clear, that the police do not have a responsibility or a duty. They do not have a fiduciary duty to protect your child in the public school, okay, or school, as they say around here. There's no duty of Sheriff Hammond to protect your child in school because he can't, okay? That he doesn't have the budget for that. And do we want to have an armed camp? If you go to yournews.com today, you'll read a very fine essay on what has happened when we have a need to turn schools into prisons. Schools are in fact a kind of prison intellectually and spiritually, but now we want them to be also kind of an armed camp. And the abuse of policing of school children is simply remarkable. The stories that I gather for you there at yournews.com, our sponsor here on the David Tulis Show, are simply they're simply breathtaking. And we have an atmosphere of fear. And I just want to mention something. I was looking for a quote yesterday after my show. I've got the 2 volumes of de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. I kept looking in volume 1 for a quote about the timorous nature of despotism, and I couldn't find it. So I went into volume 2 this morning after Panera Posse, after I had my coffee and my very well done blueberry bagel at Panera Bread Store here in Hickson at 6:30. That's when I make my order with Jen there across the counter. And I looked at volume 2 and I said, why am I looking in these books? This information is free online. I can search for it. So I went into Gutenberg.org, found de Tocqueville, Democracy in America, and within 2 minutes, I found my quote by doing a search on the word despotism, fear, and then I looked for the word timorous, and I found it in chapter 2. I was looking at the wrong volume, volume 2. And the heading is that the Americans combat the effects of individualism by free institutions. Okay, we have free institutions which combat the effects of individualism. And he says, and I really don't know where to cut off the reading of de Tocqueville. He's such a wonderful writer. But he says the first sentence here. He says, hold on a second. Here it is. Despotism, which is of a very timorous nature, is never more secure of continuance than when it can keep men asunder. In other words, apart. Right? Sundering is to separate, to break, and have to cut apart. So despotism, which is of a very timorous nature, is never more secure of continuance than when it can keep men asunder. And all is influence is commonly exerted for that purpose. No vice of the human heart is so acceptable to it as egotism. A despot easily forgives his subjects for not loving him, provided that they do not love each other. That is just a fabulous quote. A despot forgives his subjects for not loving him, provided that they do not love each other. He does not ask them to assist him, he says, in governing the state. It is enough that they do not aspire to govern it themselves. He stigmatizes as turbulent and unruly spirits, de Tocqueville says, those who would combine their exertions to promote the prosperity of the community. And perverting the natural meaning of words, he applauds as good citizens those who have no sympathy for any but themselves. Thus, the vices which despotism engenders are precisely those which equality fosters. These two things mutually and perniciously compete against each other. So here it gets into a kind of a complex discussion, which I don't have the time to separate here. But the main point that I think is worth noting is that despotism is timorous. The modern democratic state, Tennessee government, even Hamilton County government led by our county mayor, who needs to get his name out.
New York is going to win.
Hang on, here's Mike.
He's going to prevent me from singing because I got to honor that. Because I got to make money for these kids. I got to raise money for food for the poor. That's my mission. That's our spring campaign. We're doing good things for children who are literally starving to death. We got to save lives. So here.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. We do have Mike Gallagher. When I take a day off, I just give you Mike there as an example of what you should be enjoying when I'm not here. If I'm in a court case, that's what you're going to hear Mike Gallagher. He's my sub, my sub. Now, the point that I want to make is about the timorous nature of despotism and tyranny. For it to work, it has to make you the same. And I think that our officials and our overseers really see a benefit in mass terror or the incidental act of terror, though in any one of them, 20 people may be slain, or 15 or 17, as in Parkland, Florida. There's a benefit to them when people are in terror, because now we unite ourselves in community, as it were, in our schools. Somehow we're driven to unite in the very places where the terror happens. That we should firm up our commitment to public education, not to let we need to not let terror separate us. We need to not let terror end this wonderful experiment of public education. No, we need to, in fact, come together more. We need to have our kind of pious assemblies, as they were Thursday or Wednesday morning, our pious assemblies where there are prayers uttered to God for deliverance and for mercy and grace. And people come together in these sort of false communities, which are the public school community, completely public school communities, and communities that are they're not really communities, they're networks of families and parents that are the clients of any particular school. They come together when there are these fears of external extermination, these fears of external threat. Now, the question that we want to ask Jim Hammond is, what is the thinking that prevents you from shutting down the public school? Why in your mind does that thought not come more clearly into your mind and not be given some serious consideration, Sheriff Hammond? Because think about this: if we had an end of public education, there would be a great uproar. But think how quickly the marketplace would come to the aid of these families. Now, I know many people's employment situations would be disturbed for perhaps several weeks, but if public safety is that important, if you think that's your charge to have public safety and to secure schools, which is not your duty legally, and I would say it's not even your duty morally to do that, schools should be protected by people within them. We do not need to have concentration camps called schools with security guards and policemen in every room. That is what we don't want. If we have that just for maintaining safety, we have sacrificed liberty for safety, and we have achieved neither of them. But of course, we know schools already are not concerned about liberty. They don't care about that. You don't learn a thing about your rights in school The only way you can learn anything about your rights in the Chattanooga area is to tune into my show or to read Nooganomics.com. Those are the only platforms where the practical duty of liberty and the method of liberty are discussed here on the David Tulis Show and at Nooganomics.com. There we do give serious analysis of protocols of the hows and whys and the legality of so doing. Go there, read about your liberty at Transportation Administrative Notice. Transportation and Administrative Notice. Write that down and Google it for Chattanooga, and you'll find my legal review on one particular area of liberty, long neglected. Now, do we want to have free markets in Tennessee? Well, no. We do want free markets in Chattanooga in the educational sector? No. We have pressure to dissolve these schools, to shut them down because of the threat of violence. They won't be shut down for that reason. Even if we have a massacre on Monday, they will not have been shut down because we are too committed to the collective vision, the collective ideal in Hamilton County Public Schools. We are committed to collectivism and to having the state do it for us, and to having experts and specialists and state licensees, state certified teachers bring us this service. That's what we are committed to having. But we are rendered fearful. We are rendered shuddering and shy. We were rendered tremulous by the public system. David Tulis here, what's on your mind?
I remember a day, David, when you walked into an airport, a little private airport with no fences, a day where you could walk into the bank and they didn't have 2-inch thin glass. A day you could walk in everywhere without being prodded and molested by people. And is this what America wants? Because that doesn't guarantee safety or security. It just doesn't. It's a false sense of security that's going on. And the government schools, I said, from 7th grade on, need to be closed down. They're the most dangerous institutions in America because that's the beginning of the indoctrination of Marxism and socialism is in the public government institutions. They are dangerous to this republic. They need to be closed down today. And in that, maybe when the county and every county across the country steals your tax dollars in the form of so-called property taxes, they can then pay those stolen monies to private individuals to educate your children. So instead of having one propaganda center that looks like a Bolshevik, bunker, we have these open, beautiful.
That's called the international style architecture.
With computers and 100 different companies vying for your money to get your children there to be educated.
Well, listen, thanks, Mike, for calling. I wanted to say real quickly, if Sheriff Hammond really believes that securing each school is his duty, the more and it's not legally nor morally, but if he does think that, the more strong he thinks that, the more proximate he becomes, the closer he comes to saying they have to be shut down for public safety. And he's for a while. I'm sure he's very much on the side of not closing them down and seeing the justification, keeping them open. Just getting nice. That's a lot of people more budget, more SROs. He's got SROs in about 20 schools, but there are 25 more that don't have them. This is David Tulis, News Radio 98.7. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.